The uninvited guests. The morning started like any other Tuesday until the sky turned dark at noon. Not with clouds or storms, but with something far more impossible. Ships, massive, gleaming vessels that stretched across the horizon like floating cities made of silver and crystal. They hung motionless above every major city on Earth, casting shadows that turned day into twilight. Commander Sarah Chun stood on the roof of the Pentagon, her coffee growing cold in her hands as she stared up at the ship hovering directly overhead. She had seen plenty of military hardware in her 20 years of service, but this was something else entirely. The vessel was easily 10 miles long, its surface smooth as glass and covered in patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them. Two long got her comm device crackled to life. Commander Chun were getting signals from all the ships simultaneously. They're broadcasting on every frequency we have. Sarah pressed the device to her ear. Put it through. The voice that emerged was deep and resonant, speaking perfect English, with an accent that sounded vaguely European, but not quite right. People of Earth, I am Admiral Thoktar of the Vorthik Conquest Fleet. Your primitive world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 72 of your hours to surrender your governments and submit to Vorthik rule. Resistance is futile. Compliance is mandatory. This is your only warning. The transmission ended, leaving an eerie silence across the rooftop. Sarah's aide, Lieutenant Martinez, looked pale. Commander, what do we do? Before Sarah could answer, her phone buzzed with a text message, then another. Then her phone started buzzing non-stop. She glanced at the screen and blinked in disbelief. The first message was from her nephew. Aunt Sarah, did you see the aliens? They look like flying shopping malls, LOL. The second was from her neighbor. Hey, think the aliens need a parking permit for those things? Sarah scrolled through dozens of messages, each one more ridiculous than the last. Social media notifications flooded her phone. She opened Twitter and her jaw dropped. Instead of panic and terror, the trending hashtags were hashtag alien parking ticket, hashtag welcome to Earth you mad lads, and hashtag VORTHAK, more like VOR lane. Lieutenant Martinez peered over her shoulder. Are people ... making jokes about this? Across the city, Captain Rex Morrison was having his own moment of disbelief. The veteran fighter pilot stood in the hangar at Andrews Air Force Base, watching his ground crew chief Dave absolutely lose, his mind with laughter while scrolling through his phone. What's so funny, Dave? We've got a potential alien invasion here. Dave wiped tears from his eyes. Cap, you gotta see this. Some guy in Detroit just posted a video of himself on his roof, with a sign that says honk if you come in peace, and he's actually got an air horn. Rex grabbed the phone and watched the video. Sure enough, there was a middle-aged man in a bathrobe standing on his roof, holding a sign and an air horn, honking at the massive alien ship hovering overhead. The video had already been viewed 2 million times in the past hour. This is insane, Rex muttered, but he couldn't help grinning. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorthik flagship, Admiral Thoktar stood 8 feet tall with blue-gray skin and 4 arms, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the ship's artificial lighting. He had conquered 47 worlds in his military career, and the pattern was always the same. The ultimatum was delivered. Panic ensued. Governments scrambled to negotiate, and within days, sometimes hours, surrender followed. But his communications... Officer Sub-Commander Clicks looked confused as he monitored Earth's response. Admiral, we're detecting massive communication activity across their global networks. But ... But what, Sub-Commander? Sir, they don't appear to be afraid. In fact, they seem to be entertained by our presence. Thoktar's 4 eyes narrowed. Explain. Clicks manipulated the holographic display, showing streams of human communication. They're creating what they call content about us, sir. moving images and text that they share with each other. Most of it appears to be humorous in nature. Humorous? Thoktar had encountered many responses to Vorthik ultimatums, but humor was not among them. Yes, sir. They're making jokes about our ships, our message, even your name, Admiral. One particular human has created a song called Thoktar, the Conqueror Needs Better Perking, and it has been viewed by millions of their kind. Thoktar stared at the display in disbelief. In one video, a human child was drawing pictures of Vorthik ships with googly eyes and smiley faces. In another, a group of humans had gathered in what appeared to be a social establishment, raising glasses of some alcoholic beverage and toasting to our new alien overlords. May they have better taste in real estate than the last guys. Is not normal behavior, Thoktar growled. When faced with superior force, lesser species should cower, not celebrate. Sir, should we proceed to Phase 2 of the Conquest Protocol? Thoktar considered this. Phase 2 involved a demonstration of power, typically the destruction of a small military installation or uninhabited area to show the seriousness of their intent. It had never failed to produce the desired terror response. Not yet. I want to understand what we're dealing with here. Back on Earth, the situation was spiraling in ways no one had anticipated. President Williams sat in the Oval Office with her entire cabinet, watching news feeds from around the world. Instead of riots and mass panic, people were throwing impromptu parties under the alien ships. Street vendors were selling "I Survived First Contact" T-shirts. A radio DJ in Los Angeles had started a countdown to the surrender deadline, treating it like New Year's Eve. Madam President, the Secretary of Defense said, our military is ready to respond to any hostile action, but honestly, the public reaction is unlike anything we've ever seen. The President nodded grimly. It's like the entire human race has decided to treat this as entertainment. Her chief of staff leaned forward. Actually, ma'am, that might not be a bad thing. If we're not responding with fear, we're not playing their game. Meanwhile, Commander Sarah Chun had made her way to the Situation Room, where analysts were trying to make sense of the alien technology and intentions. Dr. Emily Watson, the head of xenolinguistics, was studying the broadcast. Commander, I've been analyzing their communication patterns. The Vorthik language structure suggests a hierarchical society built on dominance and submission. Their entire approach is designed to inspire fear and compliance. Sarah nodded. And we're not giving them what they expect. Exactly. Look at this. Dr. Watson pulled up social media analytics. Fear-based posts account for less than 5% of alien-related content. The rest is humor, curiosity, or outright defiance. There's even a betting pool on whether the aliens know what pizza is. Across the country, ordinary people were responding in extraordinarily ordinary ways. In Kansas, a farmer named Joe Miller was interviewed by a local news crew while continuing to harvest his corn. Ain't these aliens supposed to be scary or something? Joe asked, not looking up from his work. My wife's cooking is scarier than floating metal boxes. In New York, a group of college students had organized an alien welcome party in Central Park, complete with a DJ, food trucks, and signs that read, "Take me to your pizza, and beam me up some Wi-Fi passwords." Captain Rex Morrison received orders to scramble with his squadron for reconnaissance flights around the alien vessels. As his F-22 Raptor climbed toward the massive ship, he couldn't help but admire the engineering. The vessel was beautiful in its alien way, all flowing curves, and impossible angles that hurt to look at directly. Control, this is Falcon 1. I'm approaching the target. No response to our presence so far. Copy, Falcon 1. Remember, this is observation only. Do not engage unless fired upon. Roger that. Rex flew close enough to see details on the ships. Hull. Strange symbols pulsed with soft light. and he could see what looked like viewing ports or sensors tracking his movement. Control, they're definitely aware of me, but no hostile action. What Rex didn't know was that aboard the Vorthic ship, Admiral Thoktar was watching his approach with growing confusion. "Sub-Commander, why hasn't their military attacked us?" "Sir, their flying machines appear to be observing us." "No weapons have been deployed." "No weapons?" "We've invaded their space, delivered an ultimatum, and they send reconnaissance craft instead of assault forces?" "It appears so, Admiral." Thoktar had conquered worlds that threw everything they had at the Vorthek fleet within minutes of arrival. He had faced desperate kamikaze attacks, nuclear weapons, even primitive spacecraft loaded with explosives. But casual observation flights while the population threw parties below? This was unprecedented. As the day wore on, the human response became even more bizarre from the Vorthik perspective. News channels interviewed experts who discussed the alien technology with academic curiosity rather than terror. Children drew pictures of alien ships, and aliens themselves, usually depicting them as friendly cartoon characters. A late-night comedy show host delivered a monologue about alien invasion etiquette that had the studio audience in hysterics, but perhaps most confusing of all was the emergence of what humans called fan fiction about the Vorthik within hours. Of the initial broadcast, creative humans had written thousands of stories about the aliens, ranging from romance to friendship to comedy. One particularly popular story imagined Admiral Thoktar as a misunderstood tourist who had simply taken a wrong turn on his way to a galactic vacation destination. As the 72-hour deadline approached its first day, Admiral Thoktar called a war council with his senior officers. The massive conference room aboard the flagship held representatives from all 12 ships in the fleet. "Fellow warriors," Thoktar began, his voice echoing in the chamber, "we face an unprecedented situation. The humans of Earth are not responding according to any known pattern of conquest psychology." Commander Vex, leader of the assault forces, spoke up. "Admiral, perhaps they are simply too primitive to understand the threat we represent." "No," Thoktar replied, displaying the communication intercepts on the central hologram. "Their technology is more advanced than initially assessed. They have global instantaneous communication, sophisticated entertainment systems, and military aircraft that, while inferior to ours, demonstrate considerable engineering capability." Sub-Commander Clicks added, "Sir, we've detected what appears to be attempts at mathematical communication. Several humans have been broadcasting prime number sequences and basic geometric equations toward our ships." "They're trying to talk to us?" another officer asked. "It appears so, but they're also creating humorous content about us at the same time. We're dealing with a species that seems capable of multiple complex emotional responses simultaneously." This was the crux of the Vorthik confusion. In their experience, species faced with conquest responded with fear, anger, desperation, or resignation. But humans seemed to be responding with curiosity, humor, creativity, and defiance all at once. It was like trying to understand a symphony when you'd only ever heard single notes. As the first day of the ultimatum ended, both sides settled in for what would become the most unusual first contact in galactic history. The Vorthik fleet hung silently in Earth's skies, their crews struggling to understand a species that met the threat of conquest with memes and mathematical equations. Below, humanity continued to surprise itself with its own resilience, finding ways to laugh in the face of the unknown while simultaneously preparing for whatever might come next. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, where the greatest weapons might not be force or fear, but understanding and the indomitable human spirit that refused to be intimidated by anything, even giant ships full of four-armed aliens with impressive military records. Asterisk. Art of human chaos. Dawn of the second day brought no change in the standoff. But something else was building in the spaces between fear and curiosity. Commander Sarah Chun stood in the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center, surrounded by screens showing global reactions to the continued alien presence. What she saw defied every military manual ever written about crisis management. "Ma'am, Lieutenant." Martinez approached with a tablet full of reports. "You need to see this." The reports painted a picture of a world that had collectively decided to treat an alien invasion like the world's strangest cultural exchange. In Tokyo, citizens had organized a massive synchronized dance under the alien ship, with thousands of people performing coordinated movements while holding signs with mathematical equations. In London, the BBC had started a daily program called Alien Watch that discussed the ships with the same tone used for weather reports. In Cairo, street artists had created a massive mural depicting the Vorthic ships as ancient Egyptian gods, complete with hieroglyphic welcome messages. But it was the report from Australia that made Sarah laugh despite the gravity of the situation. The entire population of a small town called Woomera had painted messages on their rooftops reading, "GJ aliens, beers in the fridge, and welcome to Earth mind the drop bears. Lieutenant, get me a direct line to Captain Morrison's squadron." Meanwhile, Rex Morrison was experiencing the strangest patrol flight of his career. For the past 6 hours, he and his wingmen had been conducting close-range observation flights around the alien vessels, and the Vorthic ships had been cooperative, not hostile, not aggressive, just quietly allowing the human aircraft to examine them from multiple angles. "Falcon 2 to Falcon 1, his wingman's voice crackled through the comm. "You seeing what I'm seeing on the hull of this thing?" Rex banked his F-22 for a better view and nearly choked on his own surprise. Along the side of the massive Vorthic ship, lights were pulsing in a pattern. Not random, but deliberate, sequential, mathematical. "Control, this is Falcon 1. The alien vessel is displaying what appears to be a light sequence. Looks like counting? They're showing us prime numbers." "Copy. Falcon 1. Continue observation." What Rex didn't know was that aboard the Vorthic flagship, Admiral Thoktar had made a decision that went against every piece of conquest doctrine in the Vorthic military database. Sub-Commander clicks open a direct communication channel to those. "Aircraft. Sir, direct communication? You heard me. I want to talk to whoever is piloting those craft." Within minutes, Rex's radio crackled with an unfamiliar voice speaking clear, if oddly accented English. "Human pilot, this is Admiral Thoktar of the Vorthic fleet. Can you understand this communication?" Rex nearly flew into the side of the alien ship. Control, are you getting this? Falcon 1, we copy. Respond as you see fit, but remember protocols." Rex took a deep breath. "Admiral Thoktar, this is Captain Rex Morrison of the United States Air Force. Yeah, I can understand. You just fine. How's your day going?" There was a long pause before the alien voice returned, sounding almost confused. "My day? You know, how are things? Long trip from wherever you came from? Need directions to anything specific?" Another pause. "Captain Morrison, are you not afraid?" Rex considered this seriously. "Well, I'd be lying if I said giant alien spaceships don't get the adrenaline pumping, but afraid? Not really. Should I be? I have conquered 47 worlds, Captain Morrison. Fear is the typical response to my presence." "Huh. Well, Admiral, I've been shot at by people who were definitely trying to kill me, and you haven't fired a single shot. Far as I'm concerned, you're just folks until you prove otherwise." This conversation was being monitored by every intelligence agency on Earth, and the casual tone was causing heart attacks in government buildings worldwide. But something remarkable was happening in that exchange between a human fighter pilot and an alien admiral, A barrier was cracking. Captain Morrison, may I ask you a question? Shoot. Why are your people not preparing for battle? Why are they creating ... entertainment? About our arrival? Rex chuckled. Admiral, let me ask you something. When you conquered those 47 worlds, did any of them ever ask you why you were doing it? Conquest requires no explanation. The strong take from the weak. See, that's where you and Houston might have a fundamental disagreement. We've got this weird thing where we ask why about pretty much everything. Why are you here? Why conquest? Why us? Why now? And while we're figuring that out, we might as well have some fun with it. Back on Earth, Dr. Emily Watson was having her own breakthrough in the Pentagon's linguistics lab. She had been analyzing every piece of Vorthak communication, and a pattern was emerging that excited her more than it probably should have. Commander. Chun, she called as Sarah passed by the lab. I think I understand what's happening here. Sarah entered the lab, which looked like a hurricane had hit a library. Papers covered every surface. Screens showed alien text analysis. And Dr. Watson looked like she hadn't slept in 36 hours. Talk to me, Doc. The Vorthak language structure is built around concepts of hierarchy, dominance, and submission. But here's the interesting part. They have almost no vocabulary for cooperation between equals. Their word for ally translates more closely to useful subordinate. What does that mean for us? It means they literally don't have a framework for understanding what we're doing. We're not submitting, but we're also not fighting. We're doing something their entire worldview says is impossible. We're treating them as equals while maintaining our independence. Sarah felt pieces clicking together in her mind. So when they say, resistance is futile, they mean it literally. In their experience, you either submit or you get crushed. There's no third option. Exactly. But we're showing them a third option exists, and it's breaking their strategic model. This insight was being tested in real time as Admiral Thoktar continued his unprecedented conversation with Captain Morrison. The fighter pilot had been joined by his wingman, and now both human aircraft were flying in formation with a Vorthak escort craft that had launched from the mother ship. Captain Morrison, I must ask, what is your military strategy? You observe. U.S., but do not attack. You speak with us, but do not negotiate surrender. What is your objective? Rex thought about this as he watched the alien escort craft. It was graceful in flight, clearly advanced, but not aggressive in its movements. Admiral, can I be completely honest with you? I would prefer honesty to deception. We don't really have a strategy yet. This is all pretty new for us. But here's the thing. You showed up, told us to surrender, and gave us 3 days to think about it. So we're thinking. And while we're thinking, we're also learning about you, and you're learning about us. This is not how conquest typically proceeds. Yeah, well, we're not really typical about anything. Tell you what, Admiral. What if instead of this whole conquest thing, we just talked? You've got technology we've never seen. We've got, well, I don't know what we've got that you might want, but maybe we could figure out some kind of deal that doesn't involve anybody surrendering to anybody. The silence that followed this suggestion lasted so long that Rex began to wonder if he'd broken some kind of alien protocol. When Admiral Thoktar finally responded, his voice carried something that sounded almost like wonder. Captain Morrison, in my experience, species that cannot be conquered must be destroyed. Are you suggesting there is another alternative? Admiral, I'm suggesting there might be dozens of alternatives. We humans, we're big on alternatives. Sometimes too big, if you ask my wife. While this conversation continued above, the situation on the ground was evolving in ways that would have amazed both the human and alien leadership. In major cities around the world, spontaneous first contact festivals had erupted. These weren't government-organized events, but organic gatherings of curious humans who had decided that if aliens were going to hang around Earth for a few days, they might as well make them feel welcome. In New York's Central Park, a group of scientists had set up telescopes and were projecting magnified images of the alien ships onto large screens while providing running commentary about the visible technology. Children sat on blankets with their families, eating popcorn and asking questions about space travel and alien biology. In São Paulo, musicians had gathered under the alien ship and were performing a continuous concert, mixing traditional Brazilian music with electronic sounds, designed to create mathematical patterns that might be meaningful to alien listeners. The crowd had grown to over 100,000 people, all peacefully enjoying music while looking up at their uninvited guests. But perhaps most remarkably, in a small town in Ohio, an 8-year-old girl named Emma had convinced her parents to help her build a massive display in their backyard. Using Christmas lights and a complex arrangement of timers, she had created a light pattern that spelled out "hello" in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and binary code. The display had been noticed by local news, then national news, and finally by the Vorthik monitoring stations. Sub-Commander Klix approached Admiral Thoktar with this information as the human aircraft continued their escort patrol around the fleet. "Admiral, we're detecting organized communication attempts from the surface. Not from their governments, but from individual humans." "Show me." The holographic display showed Emma's backyard light display, along with dozens of similar efforts. Around the world. Mathematical sequences, musical patterns, visual art, even interpretive dance performances designed to communicate with aliens. "Sir, they're not just unafraid. They're actively trying to make contact." Thoktar stared at the display. In his centuries of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Usually, by the second day of an ultimatum, governments were desperately trying to negotiate terms of surrender. Instead, the humans were throwing parties and trying to start conversations. "Sub-Commander, what is your assessment of human military capabilities?" "Primitive by our standards, sir, but not insignificant. Their aircraft are well designed. Their weapon systems are efficient for their technology level, and they appear to have considerable organizational capability. Could they pose a threat to our fleet?" "Not a significant one, sir. But ... But what?" "Sir, they're not acting like they intend to fight us. They're acting like they expect us to be ... friends." The word friends didn't translate well into Vorthik. The closest equivalent meant something like non-competing resource sharers, which didn't capture the human concept at all. Admiral Thoktar made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed by the Vorthik High Command if they had known about it. "Sub-Commander, signal the fleet. All ships are to maintain defensive positions only. No weapons charging, no aggressive postures. And send a message to the human governments." "Sir?" "What message?" "Tell them that Admiral Thoktar requests a meeting, not a surrender ceremony. A meeting between equals." The message reached Earth's leadership within minutes, and the response was immediate chaos. Not panic chaos, but excited chaos. The President of the United States found herself in the unprecedented position of scheduling humanity's first diplomatic meeting with an alien species. Commander Sarah Chun was tasked with coordinating the human side of the preparation. As she worked with diplomats, scientists, and military leaders to plan for something no one had ever imagined, she received a call from Captain Morrison. "Commander, you need to know, I've been talking with their admiral for the past 2 hours, and I don't think these guys are the enemy." "What makes you think that, Rex?" "Ma'am, he asked me about my family. Not for intelligence purposes, just ... curiosity. He wanted to know if I had offspring and whether they were interested in flight. When I told him about my daughter wanting to be an astronaut, he got quiet for a long time, then said that his own offspring had dreamed of exploring distant worlds. Sarah felt something shift in her understanding of the situation. Rex, are you telling me that aliens have parent-child relationships similar to ours? More than that, Commander. I think they have dreams and curiosities, and maybe even fears. Just like us. The Admiral admitted that he's never encountered a species like us before, and he's not sure what to do about it. What did you tell him? Rex chuckled. I told him that we're not sure what to do about him either, but that's never stopped humans from figuring things out as we go along. As the second day of the ultimatum drew to a close, both species found themselves in uncharted territory. The Vorthik had discovered a species that refused to be conquered, but also refused to be enemies. Humans had discovered that the most terrifying thing in the universe, alien invaders, might actually be potential friends who had simply never learned how to introduce themselves properly. The stage was set for a meeting that would change everything, not through force or fear, but through the simple human innovation of treating strangers as people until they proved otherwise. Tomorrow would bring the first diplomatic contact between humans and an alien species, and nobody on either side had any idea what to expect. But for the first time, since the great ships had appeared in Earth's skies, both Admiral Thoktar and Commander Sarah Chun went to sleep thinking the same thought. Maybe, just maybe, this could work out better than anyone had dared to hope.